The power of philosophy to blunt the blows of fate is beyond belief. No missile can settle in her body. She is well protected and impenetrable. She spoils the force of some missiles and wards them off with the loose folds of her dress, as if they had no power to harm. Others she dashes aside and throws them back with such force that they rebound upon the sender. Farewell. Maybe you've stumbled upon a smart quote by an ancient Stoic philosopher, or you've read an article that shared some inspiring Stoic ideas. Maybe you've been told about that helpful and flourishing old philosophy by a friend, or you've already studied a book or two about Stoicism. Or maybe, although chances are very low, you've never even heard about it before. However, encountering Stoicism in one way or another is the easy part. Understanding and explaining exactly what it is, though, is the tricky part. Recognizing and seeing exactly how it's relevant today and how it can help you is the challenging part. Fully grasping it and putting it into practice is the ambitious part. That's where the gold is hidden. What the Stoics taught and practiced in the era of gladiators fighting for their lives and Romans socializing in steaming baths is still remarkably applicable in the era of Game of Thrones and Facebook. The wisdom of this ancient philosophy is timeless, and its value in the quest for a happy and meaningful life is undeniable. With this book, you're holding the treasure map in your hands. It introduces you to the leading philosophers. It gives you an easy-to-understand overview of the philosophy. It teaches you the core principles. It provides you with 55 Stoic practices and helpful hints for the application in your challenging life. And most importantly, it shows you how to translate it from book page to action in the real world. Cool. But how does a 20-something know how to write the Stoic treasure map for the good life? Fair enough. I'd be wondering about that too. After many years of school and university, I was sick of reading academic books and papers and learning about stuff that didn't really teach me anything of real-life value. So, literally the day after handing in my final paper, I left the country and started my 7-month-long travel around the world. I wanted to get away, see places and other cultures, but mainly I wanted to get to know myself, so I'd know what I wanted to do with my life when I got back. That last part did not work out. However, I did figure out something else instead. I somehow must have missed the class on how to live. In 15.5 years of schooling, I learned math, physics, chemistry, biology, and a bunch of other stuff. Except how to deal with challenging situations, how to face my fears and struggles, what to do about my depressive feelings, how to deal effectively with the death of my friend, what to do with my anger, how to be more confident. Nope, I must have missed all those classes. That, by the way, is exactly what schools of philosophy were all about in the ancient world. They taught you how to live. And even though these schools don't exist anymore, you and I and most people are in as much need of a philosophy that teaches us how to live as we ever were. Long story short, I decided to invest in myself and learn how to live well. From all the wisdom I devoured in the following years, Stoic philosophy helped me the most, even though it didn't start on good terms. Before I knew anything about the philosophy, I thought this must be the most boring thing on earth. I mean, after all, it's called Stoicism, and not Supermanism or something else that would indicate it's worth studying. I gave it a shot anyway, got hooked, and since then I've been a voracious student and practitioner of Stoic philosophy. And even though I've read and reread countless books, I've always lacked a source that provides a simple overview and explains what exactly Stoicism is. So I wrote this massive article that should do exactly that. Give an overview of the philosophy and say what it's all about. Fortunately, many people loved the article and found it immensely helpful. So much, actually, that someone stole the exact content and sold it as his book. That did not only test my personal Stoic mindset, but all the 5-star reviews it got told me that people really want to learn about this philosophy. So here I am, passionately writing about what would have saved me countless weeks of research and would have provided so much sought-after and desperately needed wisdom from this exemplary philosophy. I'm positive that this book will contribute to the modern Stoic literature and, most importantly, that it will serve you well on your quest for the good life, because that's really what Stoicism helps you with, living a great life. Whatever you're going through, there's advice from the Stoics that can help. Despite the philosophy's age, its wisdom often feels surprisingly modern and fresh. It can help you, jerked around by outside events, nor will others be able to push your buttons. It can teach you to handle yourself and stay calm in the midst of a storm. It can help you make decisions and therefore drastically simplify everyday living. He who studies with a philosopher, Seneca says, should take away with him some one good thing every day. He should daily return home a sounder man, or in the way to become sounder. Practicing Stoicism helps you improve yourself as a person. It teaches you to mindfully live by a set of desirable values such as courage, patience, self-discipline, serenity, perseverance, forgiveness, kindness, and humility. Its many anchors offer security and guidance and will level up your confidence. And you can get that too. In fact, Stoic philosophy made the good life a reachable goal for everybody, cutting through social classes, whether you're rich or poor, healthy or sick, well-educated or not. It makes no difference to your ability to live the good life. The Stoics were living proof that it's possible for someone to be exiled to a desert island and still be happier than someone living in a palace. They understood very well that there's only a loose connection between external circumstances and our happiness. In Stoicism, what you do with the given circumstances matters much more. Stoics recognized that the good life depends on the cultivation of one's character, on one's choices and actions rather than on what happens in the uncontrollable world around us. This, my fellow Stoic student, is at the root of a tough and at the same time highly attractive aspect of Stoicism. It makes us responsible and deprives us of any excuses for not living the best life possible. You and I, we're responsible for our own flourishing. We're responsible for not letting our happiness depend on external circumstances. We shouldn't let the rain, annoying strangers, or a leaking washing machine decide upon our well-being. Otherwise, we become helpless victims of life circumstances out of hand. As a Stoic student, you learn that only you can ruin your life, and only you can refuse to let your inner self be conquered by whatever nasty challenge life throws at you. So, Stoicism teaches us to live by a set of values that contribute to emotional resilience, calm confidence, and a clear direction in life. Just like an old, reliable walking stick, it's a guide to life based on reason rather than faith, a guide that supports us in the pursuit of self-mastery, perseverance, and wisdom. Stoicism makes us better human beings and teaches us how to excel in life. Its powerful psychological techniques are almost identical to the ones that are now proven to be effective by research in the scientific study called positive psychology. I am not accusing the researchers of theft, but the exercises discussed in positive psychology look suspiciously similar to the ones the Stoics used over 2,000 years ago. The fact that modern research often goes hand in hand with what the Stoics taught makes the philosophy even more appealing. On top of that, Stoicism isn't rigid, but open and looking for the truth. As a Latin saying goes, Zeno, founder of Stoicism, is our friend, but truth is an even greater friend. If we look around, we see countless people who pursued their dreams of a golden mansion, a Porsche 911, and a six-figure job, and yet they're not happier than before with the moldy flat, the rusty old car, and the cheap job. They're living by a formula that looks something like this. If you work hard, you'll be successful, and once you're successful, then you'll be happy. Or if I finish, achieve such and such, then I'll be happy. The only problem? This formula is broken, and after following this formula for years, these people are wondering, is this really all life has to offer? No, it's not. The point is, many people don't get any happier when they grow older. They don't improve whatsoever. They mindlessly stroll through life lacking clear direction, repeatedly make the same mistakes, and won't be any closer to a happy and meaningful life in their 80s than they were in their 20s. It should really be a no-brainer for many of us to adopt a philosophy of life that offers guidance, direction, and a larger meaning to life. Without that compass, there's the risk that despite all our well-intentioned actions, we'll run in circles, chase worthless things, and end up living an unfulfilling life full of emotional suffering, regrets, and frustration. And since it doesn't take much effort to give Stoicism a chance as your guiding philosophy of life, there's really nothing to lose and much to gain. The promise of this book is really the promise of Stoic philosophy. It teaches how to live a supremely happy and smoothly flowing life, and how to retain that even in the face of adversity. It prepares you to be ready for anything, like a tower of strength, unshakable, deep-rooted, emotionally resilient, and surprisingly calm and mindful, even in the midst of a hellfire. Stoicism can improve your life in good times, but it's in bad times when its efficacy becomes most apparent. It can be the light showing you the way through pitch-black depressive formula that looks something like this. If you work hard, you'll be successful, and once you're successful, then you'll be happy. Or if I finish, achieve such and such, then I'll be happy. The only problem? This formula is broken. And after following this formula for years, these people are wondering, is this really all life has to offer? No, it's not. The point is, many people don't get any happier when they grow older. They don't improve whatsoever. They mindlessly stroll through life lacking clear direction, repeatedly make the same mistakes, and won't be any closer to a happy and meaningful life in their 80s than they were in their 20s. It should really be a no-brainer for many of us to adopt a philosophy of life that offers guidance, direction, and a larger meaning to life. Without that compass, there's the risk that despite all our well-intentioned actions, we'll run in circles, chase worthless things, and end up living an unfulfilling life full of emotional suffering, regrets, and frustration. And since it doesn't take much effort to give Stoicism a chance as your guiding philosophy of life, there's really nothing to lose and much to gain. The promise of this book is really the promise of Stoic philosophy. It teaches how to live a supremely happy and smoothly flowing life, and how to retain that even in the face of adversity. It prepares you to be ready for anything, like a tower of strength, unshakable, deep-rooted, emotionally resilient, and surprisingly calm and mindful even in the midst of a hellfire. Stoicism can improve your life in good times, but it's in bad times when its efficacy becomes most apparent. It can be the light showing you the way through pitch-black depressive moments. It holds your hand when you need confidence to minimize emotional suffering by taming the bad guys like anger, fear, and grief. It can be your stepping stool to reach that tranquility you need when you're knee-deep in shit. It can be your strong backbone when you need to act courageously, even if you're shaking like a leaf. It can be the clown that wakes you up and casts a smile on your face when you need it the most. In short, Stoicism not only shows you the way, but also hands you the key to the good life. All you need to do is walk the path, turn the key, and enter. So, Stoic teacher Epictetus asks, how long are you going to wait? How long are you going to wait before you demand the best of yourself? You're no longer a child but a full-grown person, and yet you procrastinate, Epictetus reminds himself. You will not notice that you are making no progress, but you will live and die as someone quite ordinary. From now on, he warns himself, and all of us, to live like a mature human being and never set aside what you think is best to do. And whenever you encounter anything difficult, remember that the contest is now, you are at the Olympics, you cannot wait any longer. We don't have the luxury of postponing our training, because unlike the Olympic Games, the contest we participate in every day, life, has already begun. Life is right now. It's about time to start our training. Training in Stoicism is a bit like surfing, little theory and lots of practice. Right now you can't wait to get started, and you imagine to learn some theoretical aspects of surfing too. On the dry land, you practice how to paddle, pop up, and stand on the board. In other words, the first part feels annoying. You just wanted to surf. You didn't sign up for that dry theory lesson. Surprisingly quickly, you make it through the theory part, and you get to enter the water, flush out the sandy mouth, and start your practice. In the water, you quickly realize that it's not so easy, and the theory part was actually necessary. It's the same with Stoicism. You'll get to hit the waves, but if you want to hit them successfully and not give up after the first many nosedives, you first need to understand some of the theory behind surfing. Stoicism. I sought to organize this book and present the ancient wisdom in an accessible, digestible, and highly functional way. In the first part, you'll learn about the promise of the philosophy, its history, main philosophers, and about the core principles presented as the Stoic happiness triangle. Study that triangle, and you're able to explain the philosophy to a 5-year-old. The second part is all about hitting the waves. It's crammed with practical advice and exercises for everyday living. My ultimate aim of this direct and straightforward approach to Stoicism is to help you live a better life. I believe we can all become a little wiser and happier by practicing this wonderful philosophy. It's time to dive in. No tree becomes deep-rooted and sturdy unless strong winds blow against it. This shaking and pulling is what makes the tree tighten its grip and plant its roots more securely. The fragile trees are those grown in a sunny valley. Why then, asks Seneca, do you wonder that good men are shaken in order that they may grow strong? Just like for the trees, heavy rain and strong winds are to the advantage of good people. It's how they may grow calm, disciplined, humble, and strong. Just like the tree must tighten its grip not to fall down with every breeze, we must strengthen our position if we don't want to be swept off our feet by every trifle. This is what Stoic philosophy is here for. It will make you stronger and let the same rain and wind appear lighter and keep you on your feet at all times. In other words, it will prepare you to deal more effectively with whatever stormy weather life throws at you. From wrestling philosophers to emotional wolves, this first chapter covers all you need to know about the promise of Stoic philosophy, or why you should get into Stoicism, how to live a good life. This classic philosophic question stands at the origin of the primary concern of Stoic philosophy, how to live one's life, or the art of living. Stoic teacher Epictetus compared philosophy to artisans. As wood is to the carpenter and bronze to the sculptor, so are our own lives the proper material in the art of living. Philosophy is not reserved for wise old men. It's an essential craft for everybody who wants to learn how to live and die well. Every life situation presents a blank canvas or a block of marble that we can sculpt and train on, so that over a lifetime we can master our craft. That's basically what Stoicism does. It teaches us how to excel in life. It prepares us to face adversity calmly and simply helps us sculpt and enjoy a good life. What makes someone good at living? According to Epictetus, it's neither wealth, nor high office, nor being a commander. There must be something else. Just like someone who wants to be good at handwriting must practice and know a lot about handwriting, or someone who wants to be good in music must study music. Someone who wants to be good at living, therefore, must have good knowledge of how to live. Makes sense, right? Seneca, another important Stoic philosopher we'll get to know in Chapter 2, said that the philosopher is the one who knows the fundamental thing, how to live. A philosopher literally translates from the Greek into a lover of wisdom, someone who loves to learn how to live, someone who wants to attain practical wisdom concerning how to actually live their life. As Epictetus told us before, if we want to become good at living, we must attain knowledge on how to live. This might surprise you, but philosophy is really a matter of practice, learning how to sculpt our lives. Thinking and philosophizing about the blank block of marble won't teach us how to skillfully use chisel and mallet. The Stoics were particularly concerned with applying philosophy to everyday life. They saw themselves as veritable warriors of the mind and thought the primary reason to study philosophy was to put it into practice. This is a great comparison made by author Donald Robertson in his book, The Philosophy of Cognitive Behavioral Therapy. He said that in ancient times the ideal philosopher was a veritable warrior of the mind, but in modern times, the philosopher has become something more bookish, not a warrior, but a mere librarian of the mind. Think of these things in order to demonstrate them in practice. What did you learn them for? He continued that they, his students, were not hungry and courageous enough to go out in the real world and demonstrate the theory in practice. which is why I would like to escape to Rome to see my favorite wrestler in action. He at least puts policy into practice. True philosophy is a matter of little theory and a lot of practice, like wrestling in the ancient and surfing in the modern world. Remember, in surfing, we get to practice in the water after a quick theory part on the beach. Heavy waves are better teachers than heavy school books, and Stoicism demands exactly that, to go out there in the real world and vigorously apply what we've learned in the classroom. Our lives offer the perfect training ground for daily practice with its uncountable green waves and blank marble blocks. This practical art of living dimension of Stoicism holds two main promises. First, it teaches how to live a happy and smoothly flowing life. And second, it teaches you how to stay emotionally resilient to retain that happy and smoothly flowing life, even in the face of adversity. Let's dive into the first promise and tackle the first of the scary words. Imagine the best version of yourself. Look inside. Do you see and know who that highest version of you is? The one who acts right in all situations? The one who makes no mistakes and seems unbeatable? If you're anything like me and have been trying to improve yourself, then you probably know this ideal version of yourself. Well, in Greek, this best version would be the inner daimon, an inner spirit or divine spark. For the Stoics and all other schools of ancient philosophy, the ultimate goal of life was eudaimonia, to become good, EU, with your inner daimon. Not to be confused with demon, which is a bad spirit. Bring our human potential to life. To become good with our inner daimon, to live in harmony with our ideal self is, therefore, to get as close as possible to that high potential self. We should close the gap between who we're capable of being, our ideal self, and who we actually are in that moment. How can we do that? The Stoics had a word for that too. Arete. In short, arete directly translates as virtue or excellence, but it has a profounder meaning, something like expressing the highest version of yourself in every moment. We'll dive deeper into that in Chapter 3, but you can already see that Stoicism deals with your moment-to-moment actions and with living as close as possible to your ideal self. The Stoics' overarching goal was eudaimonia, to be good with your inner daemon, to live in harmony with your ideal self, to express your highest version of yourself in every moment. But what does that mean exactly? The most common translation of the Greek word eudaimonia is happiness. The translations flourishing or thriving, however, capture the original meaning better because they indicate a form of continuing action. You can only be good with your daemon when your moment-to-moment actions are in harmony with your ideal self. You flourish at living well, and only as a consequence, you'll feel happy. Eudaimonia refers more to the overall quality of someone's life rather than a temporary mood such as happiness. It's a condition in which a person is thriving and living optimally well and supremely happy. As Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, puts it, happiness is a smoothly flowing life. This entails that your life generally flows smoothly. Let's conclude that eudaimonia is a happy and smoothly flowing life that comes from thriving at bringing our moment-to-moment actions into harmony with our highest self. This promise of eudaimonia entails that we're armed with all we need to deal with whatever challenge we're facing in life. How else can we stay happy even when life gets tough? Because life is pretty easy when things are going well. It only gets arduous when things seem to turn against us, when we're facing difficulties and struggles. This brings us to the second promise of Stoicism. Philosophy trains us to be able to take on every obstacle in life with the right mindset so that life keeps on going smoothly. But what is philosophy? Asks Epictetus. Doesn't it mean making preparation to meet the things that come upon us? Yes, he says, philosophy prepares us to endure whatever happens. Otherwise, it would be like the boxer leaving the ring because he took some punches. We could actually leave the ring without any consequences, but what if we'd abandon the pursuit of wisdom? So, what should each of us say to every trial we face? This is what I've trained for. This is my discipline. Hey, A boxer who gets punched in the face won't leave the ring. It's what he prepared for. It's his discipline. And the same is true for philosophers. Just because life slaps, kicks, spits, and knocks us out doesn't mean we should give up and leave. It means we should get back up and keep on getting better. Such is life. It's like our boxing ring. Punches and kicks are what we've signed up for. This is our discipline. Unharmed prosperity cannot endure a single blow, says Seneca. But a man who has gone through countless misfortunes acquires a skin calloused by suffering. This man fights to the ground and carries on the fight even on his knees. He will never give up. The Stoics loved wrestling metaphors, so Marcus Aurelius similarly says, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing. We need to be prepared for sudden attacks. Nobody will ever tackle a dancer. The dancer will never get choked by adversity like a wrestler. So as warrior philosophers, we know that life will be challenging. Actually, we should even be rubbing our hands together and be looking forward to take some punches, knowing they will make us stronger and grow our skin thicker. This is why we should want to engage and train in this fight they call life. Because we want to be strong. We want to live happy and smoothly flowing lives. We want to handle ourselves and our actions when life gets toughy. We want to be a tower of strength, unshakable even at the peak of a rage attack. When others panic, we want to stay cool, well-considered, and be able to be the best we can be. Practicing Stoicism helps us develop the tools to deal as effectively as humanly possible with whatever kicks and punches life throws at us. No matter what happens in our lives, we're ready for anything. We're prepared to take hooks and sidekicks, never give up, and make the best of it. This is the promise of Stoic philosophy. Yet, right now, if you get punched in the face, what's going to happen? You get emotional. Like everybody else, you either angrily fight back, or more likely, you start crying. The Stoics identified strong emotions as our ultimate weakness, especially when we let them dictate our behavior. They're toxic to eudaimonia, and they're at the root of all human suffering. Unfortunately, according to the Stoics, most of us are enslaved to passions, strong negative emotions such as irrational fear, grief, or anger. This is why so many of us are miserable. We're far away from being a tower of strength. We're far away from being at good terms with our ideal self. Our passions cause us to act far beneath of what we're capable of. If we want to be able to act like our ideal self, say the Stoics, we need to keep our emotions in check. We need to tame them so they won't get in the way of the good life. No, thank you. I can't afford to panic right now. Just as there are ailments to the body, there are ailments to the mind, and the Stoics were well aware of that. They said it's impossible to flourish in life while being tormented by irrational emotions. Therefore, we need apatheia, the ability to overcome these interfering emotions. That's where the word apathy comes from, and it's a main reason for the classic misunderstanding that the Stoics were somehow unemotional or seeking to suppress their feelings. The other reason for that misunderstanding comes from the lowercase word stoic, which means to suck it up, or having a stiff upper lip, and has absolutely nothing to do with the uppercase stoicism this book is all about. Let's clear out this Stoics are emotionless misunderstanding right now. Stoicism has nothing to do with suppressing or hiding one's emotions or being emotionless. Rather, it's about acknowledging our emotions, reflecting on what causes them, and learning to redirect them for our own good. In other words, it's more about enslaving ourselves from negative emotions, more like taming rather than getting rid of them. Imagine strong emotions to be like your inner wolf, immensely powerful when let loose and able to pull you wherever it wants to. Emotions activate an action tendency. When you feel angry, for example, you have the tendency to clench your fists, shout, and throw stuff. Basically, when the inner wolf is angry, we let it take over, and then we blindly follow the action tendency and act out. What the Stoics found, however, is that we don't need to follow that tendency. We can train ourselves to act calmly despite feeling angry, act courageously despite feeling anxious, and going east despite the wolf pulling west. Fortunately, we don't need to pretend the wolf isn't there, or even kill it, which isn't even possible. The Stoics want us the little book of Stoicism 22 to tame and learn to understand that wolf. Instead of letting it dictate our actions when it's angry, anxious, or hungry, we act calmly despite the anger. It can snarl and howl as much as it wants. We don't fear it and act as we choose to. The wolf doesn't have a say in our decisions any longer despite feeling the action tendency. The goal isn't to eliminate all emotions. The goal is to not get overwhelmed by them despite their immense power. We feel the emotional wolf, but we keep on our path despite it pulling in another direction. Okay, the wolf wants to freak out, but what would it help? We say to ourselves. We rise above our emotions, we can hear it snarl, but we know we neither need to listen nor follow along. The Stoics weren't unemotional people with hearts of stone. They acknowledged that desires and emotions are part of nature, but we have it within our power to rise above them and not get too disturbed by them. No school has more goodness and gentleness. None has more love for human beings, says Seneca. The goal which it assigns to us is to be useful, to help others, and to take care, not only of ourselves, but of everyone. The Stoics do care for their loved ones and fellow citizens. They just tame their emotions so they won't get irrationally overwhelmed by them. As Seneca puts it, there's nothing impressive about putting up with that which one doesn't feel. Stoic author Donald Robertson explains it well. A brave man isn't someone who doesn't experience any trace of fear whatsoever, but someone who acts courageously despite feeling anxiety. The Stoics want us to conquer our passions by becoming stronger than them, and not by eliminating them. We will always feel the emerging emotional wolf, but we can train ourselves to recognize our tendency toward following along, and then deliberately choose whether to follow along or not. Stoicism will help us get less plagued by negative emotions and, at the same time, experience more positive emotions such as joy or tranquility. It's important to notice, however, that for the Stoics, these positive emotions are more like an added bonus than a motive by themselves. Let's look closer at tranquility as a byproduct of practicing Stoicism. It may come as a surprise, but Stoicism is a rather joyful philosophy of life. When you read the Stoics, you find cheerful and optimistic people fully enjoying what life has to offer. They weren't unemotional, they just recognized that strong emotions were their weakness and stood in their way to live as they're capable of. Remember, the ultimate goal of life is eudaimonia, the happy and smoothly flowing life that comes from thriving at expressing your ideal version, moment to moment to moment. And if you're enslaved to your emotional wolf, then you panic and follow your action tendencies that are way beneath of what you're capable of. That's why the Stoics want us to minimize the effects that strong emotions have on our lives. They want us to tame that wolf so that we can stay at the steering wheel at all times instead of letting the wolf take over whenever it wants to. Only then can we express our highest version, and lastly, live a happy and smoothly flowing life. So when we're not enslaved to our emotions, we can express the highest version of ourselves in every moment. When we do that, there's simply no room for regret, fear, or insecurity. What results from this is a really helpful side effect: tranquility. In today's hectic world, it's what so many of us seek, to be able to stay calm, feel confident and secure, even in the midst of chaos. If we practice Stoicism, this is exactly what we get as a byproduct. It's a byproduct because it's not what the Stoics sought in the first place. They didn't seek tranquility, they sought eudaimonia, and tranquility came as an added and welcomed bonus. So it wouldn't really be consistent with Stoicism to practice it for tranquility's sake,